Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yacker. My guest on today's show is neurodivergent medium and empath MG Stevens. I'll be yakking with MG about her book, The Boogeyman Chronicles. MG Stevens, welcome to Paranormal Yacker.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
For those in my audience who may not be familiar with the word neurodivergent, can you tell me, MG, what it is and when you realized you were one?
Neurodivergent means someone who is either autistic, ADHD, dyspraxia, someone who is not neurotypical. I grew up knowing I was different, very different from everyone around me, but I didn't know why and how and who, what, where. I didn't know any of that until a couple of years ago. I just happened to be looking at a YouTube video and it said, you might be autistic. And I was like, because I didn't know what autism really was. And I thought, oh, come on. Then I watched it and it was like, oh my God, I'm autistic. And then I just recently got officially diagnosed. It was like, already then. So I'm autistic with ADHD, dyspraxia, all that, the whole package. I got everything.
Your mother, MG, was a well-known psychic. She worked with detectives and helped them solve cold cases. Do you remember when you became aware of the fact that you inherited her psychic genes? And do you recall your first paranormal experience?
I was very confused as to what mom actually did because it's always kind of shrouded in a lot of mystery. And people thought my mom was a witch, but she was never a witch. She was never into Wicca. She never did anything like that. She was just naturally gifted. She was also neurodivergent. And there's a very strong correlation between neurodivergency and sensitivity to the paranormal and ESP. She was neurodivergent as well. My first paranormal experience happened when I was very, very young. I was all of 2 years old, I think. Don't remember exact age, but I was very young. I was old enough to stand up in a crib. It kind of morphed over the years because I was having my own experiences over here and my mom was doing her own thing over here. So I didn't really get what was, if those two worlds were the same, and they were, but I didn't know it because I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. We didn't have all these paranormal shows. No one talked about this kind of thing. It was, new. It was still, the Warrens were considered kooks. No one was taking any of this seriously. My mom was over here doing her thing and I was over here having these weird experiences and thinking I was going crazy and had no idea what was up with me. It wasn't until about 13, 14, 15 years old when I kind of became Christian and kind of got into that sort of world that I realized, oh, wait a minute, mom is a psychic or whatever you want to call it, sensitive, ESP, and I have that too. I got that from her. And then we started kind of working together, helping people. It was much later that I started to clue in that she and I were alike and I inherited that ability as well. My first paranormal encounter, like I said, I was so young. I do remember a really terrifying encounter where I was standing up in my crib one night. The room was dark, but it was a little bit of light from the closet. They turned on a little light. So I had a little bit of like a light, but it was mostly dark and something happened. And it wasn't cataclysmic. It wasn't this sort of earth shattering, like I heard a noise or some flash or something. It was just, I have a distinct memory of being in myself as, me in the crib. And I looked up off to the side and I could see something. And I remember pointing at it and getting really freaked out. But yet I remember looking down and seeing me in the crib. At one point I was split or something. I don't know. And then about a year and a half or so later, maybe it happened again. I was outside broad daylight and I was on my little purple tricycle at Easter trying to look for eggs and being cranky, needing a nap. And same thing. I looked up and it was like, I saw something, but yet I looked down and I could see the whole scene. I could see everything. And I recounted that to my parents, my mom especially. I was like, yeah, my nursery looked like this and this and this. And she was like, how did you know that you were just a baby? And then that second encounter, I had this dress on and I had a little Easter basket and they were like, how did you know that you were so young? And it was like, I saw it from a different angle.
When you were a youngster, a humanoid appeared in the backyard of your home. What did that humanoid look like? And what was your reaction when you saw it?
That was, again, another encounter when I was very, very young. My older sibling, middle sibling really, was taking care of me. They had their friends over. They were all just kind of goofing off and, being teenagers, dumb teenagers. All of a sudden, someone starts screaming, what is that? What is that? Everyone was starting to panic because we had this big, expansive backyard that opened up to a canal. We lived in the South and it was rural. It was a very huge backyard and it was all very dark back there. There was no lights because there was nothing back there at that time. A bunch of, gators and snakes and raccoons. That was about it. I remember this very gangly figure was just standing there, and we could, there was enough light from the porch light to where we could see it, but not see it. It was just standing there, and it looked kind of like an indigenous man. My grandfather's indigenous, and it kind of reminded me of him. It just stood there. I still remember my sibling and their friend just running back and forth from the kitchen to the bedroom. What's going on? Oh my God, we should call the cops. And back and forth, and then finally went away. But it was terrifying because I'm a little kid and I see the, not adults, but I see the people taking care of me panicking, and then I happen to look out the window and I see this thing. It left all of us bewildered. We were just so shook up about it.
It seems malicious paranormal activity has always been around you. Did you ever give thought as to why you have been targeted by malicious entities?
I don't really know. I often wonder that myself. I think that the maliciousness is they're like bullies. They're like, how you have a bully in real life, a physical, real, true bully that, picks on the quiet, shy kid that doesn't look like they're going to defend themselves. And that's kind of how I felt like I maybe appeared to whatever was going on in my world. I just seemed to be a target for this sort of thing because I was really scared, unsure. I had this weird ability and I didn't know what to do with it, and it was just running rampant, and I didn't know what was going on. It was terrifying to have this ability to hear things. I was a medium even as a little kid, so I would go into places and I would feel everything, good, bad, alive, dead. Someone was alive and they were going through something, I picked up on that. I used to have anxiety attacks when I used to go into malls. I couldn't be around crowds because it was just so suffocating. I just got real terrified of just being around people. The malicious activity, again, if it was demonic in nature, if it was evil in nature, it found me. And I guess it was just like, oh, here's something that's, sensitive. We can pick on her. Because I think that's kind of what their MO is. They're malicious. If they're malevolent, if they're nasty, they just go, oh, here, let's pick on this one because she doesn't know any better. She can't run us off and she doesn't know what's going on. And it was fun for them, just like it's fun for a physical person, bully, to pick on someone. It makes them feel good. I think it does the same in the paranormal world. I think you have paranormal bullies that are just like, it's like I said, it's their MO, it's their thing, it's what they do. I think I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Your mother, MG, astral traveled to the home of your oldest sibling. Could you describe that astral travel incident?
Oh, it was about 1982. I was about 5 years old. My older sibling got married and started a family. This was my mom's first grandchild, and my mom is a kid person. She loves kids. She wanted 5 kids. She had 3, but she wanted 5, and she wanted 20 grandkids. She was a lot like her friends used to call her Mother Nature because she was so good with children. She just had a real rapport with them. My mom was utterly heartbroken when she realized that my sibling was bringing a child into the world, and oh my gosh, she wasn't going to be there because we were in the South on the East Coast. My sibling was in California. My mom was just heartbroken. She was devastated. She wanted to be there. It really bothered her a lot. My mom was at the point of tears. She really wanted to be there and be with the family and welcome this first grandchild. She was heartbroken and she went to bed, and she had practiced astro traveling because she used to study ESP development and all of that. She used to take classes with a man named Tony. He was from London. She was developing her gift and getting stronger and stronger all the time. So she had done a few astro traveling. I don't know much about that because she never told me. She was practicing it. So, and that's the thing. She told me, she said I was there. I witnessed the whole thing. She did not even try to do it. This is how powerful my mother was. And it was kind of frightening because, here she was astro traveling, not trying to, and she did it anyway. That was kind of spooky. She went to bed that night after she talked to my sibling, and the baby had been born, and she just wanted to see this baby so bad. It's her first grandkid. She went to bed that night just heartbroken, crying, thinking about being there and seeing. Maybe her thoughts were so powerful that she just kind of saw herself holding the baby and just kind of saw herself being there. In the morning, she went to bed not feeling anything. She said nothing happened. I didn't sense anything. I didn't feel anything, nothing. I didn't have a dream. She said nothing. She said, I slept really good. The next morning, my sibling calls my mom and says, Mom, you were here last night. And my mom was like, what are you talking about? I've been here the whole time. And she's like, no, Mom, you were here. And my mom was like, okay, I'm listening. What's going on? My sibling said, last night we were sleeping. I heard something. I woke up. I looked up at the foot of the bed and you walked in. There was enough light in the room. We had a hallway light on and I could see you perfectly. You walked right into the room. You weren't wispy. You weren't ghostly looking. You were physical. She said, you walked into the room. The baby's crib was at the foot of the bed. My mom walked into the room, looked at the baby, which was a girl, first granddaughter. And she looked down and she checked on the baby. She was looking at the baby. And then my mom looked up, looked at my sibling and their partner, and then just walked out. My sibling didn't sleep much that night. And then, couldn't wait till, cause there's, 4-hour difference, 3-hour difference. So yeah, I called my mom and said, you were here last night. My mom always surmised that maybe her wishing, her hoping, maybe that was enough with her abilities. Maybe that was enough to kind of project herself there.
Your life has been filled with having nightmares, hearing strange sounds, and even being at the mercy of a foot monster. Incredible. Could you expand on any of those experiences?
The foot monster was absolutely terrifying. This was, I guess, one of the entities or an entity, first stepmother's condo in the South. And we used to go there on the weekends. I knew what was in store after a while. When my dad came to pick me up from my mom's and we went to my stepmom's, we went there and I'm laying there at night. I know what's coming. As soon as I drift off, it's just nonstop torture. One of the things that this thing did was I remember waking up with something grabbing my feet with very long, jagged fingernails. So it was just scraping my feet. I got the idea as a 2, 3, 4-year-old to think, oh, I know, I'll just wear socks and maybe it'll go away. So that was my anecdote to that. It kind of didn't bother my feet as much. It did other things like whisper in my ear. I could actually feel the breath on my face. Kick the bed, throw the covers off the bed, weird noises, just constant torment all night long. As far as nightmares, I've always had very vivid dreams. I've always had very intense nightmares. Nothing precognitive per se, but I did have a very strange encounter when I was probably about 17, 16, 17. I had this one dream. I was dreaming, but I don't know what was going on in that dream, but I remember I woke up. I wasn't me, but I was me. And I knew I was me, but I knew I wasn't me either. So I remember something said, find a mirror and look in it. I'm looking all around in this tiny little cell. It looked like it was like a bathroom that was made into a makeshift cell. And I saw the mirror on the wall and I looked into it and I saw my face, but yet I saw a man's face overlay. And so I was like, oh, I'm a man. Kind of said that to myself. I look over and the toilet is kicked over and the everything's all awry. The sink is all cracked in half. And I hear these voices coming from outside of this hallway. So I look down and I see these 2 soldiers, and the soldiers are leading a group of kids that were probably all of 5 to maybe 13 years old. They were leading them into this room across the way from me that had a very big, thick metal door with a huge latch on it. I didn't know what was going on at first. I looked out and I said, what's going on? The soldiers said, this has to be, mind your own business. And they were barking at me in another language, but yet I understood them. It then dawned on me that these kids were Jewish kids that were being killed. And this was a gas chamber that these soldiers were leading these kids into. And I came unglued, absolutely unglued. I was screaming, crying, trying to break the bars off, doing everything I could, saying, please take me instead, leave the kids alone. They didn't do anything. Please just take me instead. I'll happily go in their place. Please take me instead. And I was so just the fear, the terror, the panic, the pleading, just the terror of what I was seeing in front of me just tore my soul out. I remember I was screaming and begging. I remember the soldiers walking away laughing like it was nothing. These kids were being killed right in front of me. I couldn't save them. I remember waking up to a thud. It felt like my soul, I don't know, landed with a thud. I landed so hard that I sat up in bed and my shirt was soaked with tears. My hair was wet with tears. My face was completely soaked. And I remember waking up and there was a mirror right in front of my bed. And I looked and I was crying and hyperventilating. That was the strangest dream I have ever had because I've never woken up to a thud. It literally felt like I was falling falling, and then boom, I hit something, and then I just bounced back and I sat up straight in bed and just looked into a mirror. I was a mess. And that dream stayed with me forever.
You, MG, are an empath, someone who picks up and absorbs the feelings and emotions of those around you. What with your sensitivity, I am sure it has taken its toll and affected you on a multitude of levels. How do you deal with that?
I think first you have to understand it. That's different for everybody. I don't think you can get 10 empaths in a room and they all feel the same thing in the same way. We may all be, either clairaudient or clairvoyant or something like that, but I think it hits people differently. The best thing to do is to find a mentor or to read a lot, research, find out how you function in this. And that's kind of how I did. And thankfully I had my mother as a mentor, but I read a lot and I learned through just trial and error in life, learning how to shut things out, learning how to feel just what I need to feel and learning how to push that other stuff away. It's different for everyone. There's times when I can't even go near it. I know I can feel people thinking of me. I can feel people talking about me. I know when someone is doing something malicious, I can always feel that kind of thing. So it never really turns off. It's almost like a dimmer switch. You can turn it down, but you can never turn it off. I've never been able to turn this ability, what have you, off. It's just, I can always turn it down. There's times in my life where things get kind of chaotic and hectic. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be feeling anything else other than what's right in front of me. And I have to shut out everything. But there's times when stuff kind of comes in and I'm like, oh, so-and-so's thinking about me. They're going to call me, or, oh, this is going to happen. And I know it. Like I said, you never turn it off, but you can dim it.
Several times in your life, you've had encounters with what you call the chasers. What or who are the chasers?
It's these weird ghosts, demons, entities, whatever you want to call them, but they seem to like to chase you. And that's why I call them the chasers, because I don't know what else to call them. Silly, I know. Yeah, there's been several different episodes where I would feel something rush up to me and I would be like, oh God. And for all the world, you feel like something's standing right there. You can feel it. I would then be like, okay. And then I would start to kind of walk and then run. And I could feel something on my heels. I could feel something actually chasing me and right behind me. And then there's times when I've been pushed or what have you. And I could feel something standing there just kind of looking at me like, yeah, I got you. Chasers, it's a stupid name, but it's just something that for that encounter, it wasn't enough for them to rush up to me and kind of get at my face. And I could feel something right here. I started to take off and run thinking I can actually outrun this thing and it would catch up to me. It would be right on my heels. I don't know what I was thinking.
Your mom had an alien encounter where she was taken aboard a craft and communicated telepathically with different size grays. And you yourself also had encounters with alien beings. Can you elaborate on those encounters?
My mom was severely dyslexic, sheltered housewife with 2 young kids in 1967, 68, around there. She was in San Diego, newly married to my dad, was her second husband. And she said she had a dream. And for many years, she kept saying it was a dream. No, it was a dream. It was a dream, right? Like she was sure, but not sure. I said, no, Mom, I don't think that was a dream. Because the more we talked about it, the more we realized this was an actual abduction. She probably was abducted and it scared her so bad. And like I said, my mom was very spiritually formidable woman. She had been through everything, seen everything, done everything. Nothing scared her. But every single time I asked her about this dream, Mom, tell me about that UFO dream, she would start to visibly shake. And she'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. But what happened was, and this was before Close Encounters, this was before Whitley Strieber's Communion, this was before Star Trek even. But this was about 67, 68. My mom in San Diego said she went to bed one night and had this dream where she said she woke up and she was in a craft. Again, this is a good 10, 11 years before Close Encounter. So she's in this craft with this very tall gray. Now, my mom's about 5'6". This gray was much taller than her. She said it was probably a good 6 feet. And this gray was the typical gray, but it was very tall. And she said it was wearing a blue tunic, a shimmery blue tunic, like a bathrobe. It had a belt. It had bell sleeves, went down to here. And she said it was lined in silver, but it was blue. And she said this, and my mom used to make clothes for my siblings. So she worked with fabrics and she knew, and back in 67, she said, I had never seen any sort of material like this. It looked like it was metal. This robe tunic thing would look like it was made out of metal. She said this gray was showing her around and then placed something metallic in her hand. It was about this big and it was in her hand. And she saw this thing and it looked very similar to the seal of the United States with the eagle and the shield and the olive branch and the arrows. It looked very much like that. My mom said she got the impression that this gray was a female, even though we don't really assign genders to them. She said she got the distinct impression that this thing was a female. This gray put this thing in her hand and she looked at it and she exclaimed, she goes, "Oh, we have something like that at home." So she recognized it from the dollar bill, a seal of the United States. So she said this gray led her into like an elevator type lift thing. She said the doors were just like Star Trek where they went psh, and they opened up like that. This gray then led her into a dimly lit room. And my mother remembered that everything on this ship was very smooth brush metal. There was no knobs or levers or nothing. There was nothing protruding, nothing sticking out, no buttons, no switches, nothing. And she said this gray walked over to what looked like to be a control panel. And my mom said with its long skinny fingers went like this across the control panel and the whole entire ship powered up and turned on and the lights came on. And that's when my mother snapped out of her dreamy like place in her mind, she was in a dreamlike state, like she was awake, but she was kind of just blissfully unaware of where she really was. She says when she saw that, and she said, once I saw the power that these things wielded, she said, I lost it. And she came unglued, started screaming, crying, begging this gray, please take me home. Please take me home. I want to go home. I want to see my family. Please take me home. I don't want to go with you, please. And this gray, telepathically was reassuring her, look, we're not going to hurt you. You're fine. Don't worry. You're safe. She wasn't having it. She was like, no, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. And absolutely in a panic. She then remembers like nothing after that because she was, I guess, in such a panic that maybe she got knocked out. I don't know. She then remembers waking up, sitting up in her bed, kind of still out of it. And she says she woke up kind of sitting there and just kind of like little dazed. She remembered the dream. So she jumps up, runs to the bedroom window. There was a window above their bed. And she's like standing on the bed and she parts the curtains and she's looking out, trying to see if there was a craft out there because she remembered the dream. She knew she was on a craft. For many years, she kept telling me, no, it was a dream. It was a dream. And I said, Mom, I don't think it was a dream. That was her encounter. She never had any more encounters. I think it scared her so bad. For me, my encounter was in 1995 or so. I was about 18. I was in the South. At that point, we were going to a home church. And I was not a fan of this home church. My mom, one night right before we're about to walk in, I was just dreading it. And I just said, I'm not going in. I'm not going in. I hate this place. I hate it so much. I don't want to be here. And my mom was really cool about it. She was just like, okay, don't worry about it. You don't have to go in, but just be careful because you're outside. I had to sit outside because I didn't want to go inside. So I sat outside and she was like, just be careful because this isn't a bad neighborhood, but it's not the greatest. So just be careful. And I was like, okay. So I'm standing outside. It's pitch black dark. There's a few lampposts, but they're doing more harm than good because they're so bright that they're kind of blinding me. So I can't really see around me, but it's dark and I'm trying to see around these things. I'm standing there at this pond. If anyone in the South has ever been near a pond, they know the toads that are there croak so loudly that you can't hear anything else hardly. All the other sounds I could barely hear, but all I could hear were the toads. So I'm standing there and all of a sudden I'm realizing I'm gonna have to be out here for 4 hours. And it was kind of like, oh, great. I'm standing there trying to distract myself, trying to be like, oh, look at the sky and look at everything. I keep getting these waves of sudden, the worst fear, the worst terror, danger, run, oh my God, the world's ending, just absolute panic washing over me very quickly and very suddenly. Like it came in waves. And all of a sudden I'm like, good, I could feel it. It was like, oh my God, what is that? And I'm thinking someone is going to sneak up on me. So I'm looking, there's no person. I'm not understanding what's going on. I'm thinking I'm having a panic attack. I didn't know what was up. So I remember looking up, trying to distract myself. I'm like, okay, just don't think about this. I thought I was just having a panic attack. So I looked up at the sky, trying to stargaze, trying to get because we didn't have phones back then. I didn't have Google or Instagram or anything like that. So I didn't have anything to distract myself. So I'm looking up at the sky going, okay, look at the sky. Just distract yourself. I'm looking up at the sky and I'm like, okay, why is there no moon or stars or cloud. There's always something out. There was nothing out. And the sky had a very inky black to it. It looked unnatural. It looked like something was real wrong. And I'm just like, that ain't right. There's something wrong with that. And then all of a sudden another wave of that terror. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking all around. And I remember I'm looking at the sky. And again, this is happening within half seconds. So I'm just dragging it out to tell you. So I remember looking down and I remember all of a sudden there's no sound. Those toads that were croaking so loudly not a half second ago, gone. Nothing. Sky looks funny. It looked like it sounded like someone had muted the planet. There was no sound. There was nothing. And that's when I started to panic. I thought, oh Lord, what's going on now? And then all of a sudden, right in the sky where not a half second ago, there wasn't any clouds. All of a sudden there's this thin strip of clouds, just thin strip, and they're not that high up either. And I remember looking up and going, what's that all about? And I see these lights, 3 lights, and they're kind of moving in this formation. I just glanced up at it and I automatically assumed at that moment that these were spotlight. Now, in the tiny little redneck town that we lived in, my mom, whenever we saw those lights, she would always say, car dealership's having a sale. It was in LA. We didn't have the Oscars or anything like that. My mom always said, car dealership's having a sale. So that's what I told myself when I saw those lights. I thought, car dealership's having a sale. So I dismissed it, turned my head to look to see if someone was coming at me. And I heard in my head, not even my thought, I heard, look at the lights again. Just when my head whipped around and I looked at the lights and I noticed that the lights were not beams going up and hitting the clouds. They were inside the clouds. They were in the clouds. And these lights had no sound. They were very bright. They were inside the clouds. They were moving in such a very intricate formation that I immediately was able to okay, not a plane, not a helicopter. What the hell is this? And this was before everyone had drones and all that stuff. So all of a sudden, these lights were just moving in this sort of almost a very intricate figure 8, all 3 of them. And I'm just looking at them and it was almost like, and I know this sounds nuts, but I'm just going to tell you what I felt and heard and everything. I had a direct connection with this thing. It felt me and I felt it. That's how it was. And I looked up at this thing and I went, oh, those aren't spotlights. It was almost like it got excited. It wanted me to see it. It wanted me to notice it. And that's why I heard that. I remember I looked up at it and I went, those aren't spotlights. What the heck is that? And as soon as my thoughts went to as soon as I got suspicious, those lights went from, this very intricate formation and they stopped where they were. And then they just started following each other in a circle, perfect circle. As soon as I saw that, I got the major creeps and I went, this thing is what's been stalking me. It was almost like I got really excited, like, oh, she sees us and she knows we're not supposed to be here. And the distinct impression of these lights, whatever they were, because I didn't see no craft, I didn't see great, I just saw light. But the distinct impression from these lights was that they knew they were violating some sort of airspace. They weren't supposed to be here. Something was bad wrong with the situation, and I knew it, and they liked that I knew it. I remember looking at those lights going, what is up with that? And all of a sudden I heard in my head, we're not supposed to be here, and we know you know it. A taunt. And I just looked at that and went, oh, really? You think you're going to come here to my planet and bully me? I don't think so. Being kind of in the Christian household at that point, anytime you want to make something bad go away, you use in the name of Jesus. That's how you just do things. So I started praying and I said, get out of here in the name of Jesus. You're not supposed to be and I'm screaming at this thing. I'm screaming at it. Get out of here. And this thing, and the angrier, strangely, the angrier I got, the faster the lights were spinning. I finally sent this thing off, spinning, and it took off out of the cloud that if I had blinked, I would have missed it. It was that fast. And again, no sound. So of course I'm panicked and I'm like, I ain't going to stay out here. So I ran back inside and I guess my mom saw my face. She came around the corner because I found a stairwell away from everybody. And I proceeded to hug my knees for the next few hours. But my mom saw me. She said, she came around the corner. She's like, what's up with you? And I said, I saw something, Mom. And she looked over her shoulder like she was afraid they would hear, the other people. And she said, okay, don't say anything. Well, we'll talk later. After the meeting was over, we went home. It was all of 5 minutes away because we lived across the street. When we got home, I told her, I said, Mom, I saw this thing and it was like this and blah, blah, blah. And I explained the whole thing to her. And she's real cool because she had her own experience. So she was like, okay, I believe you, but don't say anything outside of this house because the people we hang around, a lot of fundamentalist Christian-y people are going to say you brought the devil. So don't be talking about this to nobody. And I didn't. I clammed up, said nothing to no one. I didn't want to talk about it. It scared me. The next weekend that we go to the church meeting. It was one of the last times we went, and I was not about to stay home and I was not about to stay outside. I went to that meeting and I sat there sulking, but I sat there. I would rather deal with hypocritical Christians than angry ETs any day. I remember sitting there, and in walks the parents of my ex-boyfriend. They were so fundamentalist Christian that they would not allow anything but the Bible in their house. There was no newspapers, no magazines, no books, no nothing. I remember walking into their house one time with a t-shirt that had a dream catcher on it, and they made me take off that shirt because dream catchers were of the devil, apparently. That's what they were telling me, and they burned that shirt while praying. That's how fundamentalist Christian. They didn't want anything to do with aliens. It was all the devil. They walk in and they're completely shell-shocked. They're holding on to each other. They're clinging to each other like a couple of scared monkeys, and their faces are like terror, pure terror. And I remember all of us noticed it because this was a complete departure from how they normally are. And we were all looking at them like, what the heck's going on here? After the meeting, some of the people, the churchy people, came around and said, are you guys okay? Do you need prayer? Do you want to talk? Like, what's going on with you guys? You don't act right. They were completely terrified, and they still clinging to each other. They said, we saw something, we saw something, we saw something, we saw something. And they were literally stuck in like a trauma loop. They couldn't stop saying it. They just kept, we saw something, we saw something. They finally managed to pull out of them what they experienced. In their own words, this is what happened. The weekend before, when I saw the lights, meeting ended, we all went home. They were driving home, and they lived further away than we did. So as they were driving home in a very heavily residential area, I mean, I know the area. It was very cars everywhere, people everywhere. This wasn't out in the boonies. Something very heavy and metallic, they said, landed on the roof of their truck with a big clang. And they said that something for about a half mile tried to pick up their truck, carry it away, I guess. And they said of course, the only thing they knew to do was like me, pray. So they were praying at this thing. And they said for a good half mile, the front of their truck kept getting lifted up off the ground. And finally, after all this praying, they said it finally latched, the car finally fell, and I guess it flew away. I found it very interesting how, I was still traumatized, of course, but these people had a very close encounter. They had physical contact. They were understandably completely shell-shocked, terrified. I grew up with a mom that knew about this other stuff. Yes, she was Christian, but she knew that there was other weird stuff out there. But these people did not. To see them so tore up about their experience, it just was kind of heartbreaking. Even though we weren't getting along and we weren't really talking, it was still heartbreaking to watch because everything that they had just been told themselves or had been told up until that point was now blown out of the water, and they didn't know what to think. They didn't know what to believe because this wasn't the demon coming after them. This was something completely different.
From ghosts to UFOs and unexplained phenomena, you take your readers on a chronological telling of every encounter you and your family endured over the years. Did you find that by doing that, it was cathartic and helped in some way to release the hurt and pain you've been carrying within you for such a long time?
It was validating because I was one of those where no one knows what I'm pretty quiet in a group, and nobody knows what I go through. Nobody knows what I've been through, and I don't volunteer. And then every once in a while, something will come up, a subject will come up, and it'll be like, yeah, I've been through this, or I can do this, medium stuff there. No way. I went my whole life. I'll be 45 in June. And I went my whole life not saying anything about anything really to many people. Very few people knew this about me. It's hard for me to talk about this because there is still a lot of scrutiny. I found a lot of pain and anger kind of welling up because I thought, why me? Why did I have to suffer? Why did I have to go through all of this? And two, also the adults in my life that should have been there, my dad, my stepmom, and all those other, they should have been there and they weren't. But I had to let that go because it was like, well, this is a weird thing. How could they have, in their world, this doesn't exist. And that's what they were told. And so I kind of had to forgive them and release it because I went to them with this very strange thing saying this stuff is happening. They don't understand. They're just like, what are you talking about? Ghosts don't exist. There was a lot of healing. There was a lot of forgiving, a lot of letting go, and a lot of coming to terms. I was writing various points during this thing. It took me about a month to write this whole story. I did it with no frills. It was just play by play of the paranormal encounters of my life. And when I wrote all this stuff down, I had to stop a few times and go like, man, I've been through some stuff. How could I have been through all of this and still be somewhat sane? Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of healing. There was a lot of realizations that came up. Those two first encounters, what was that? I asked Paul Eno. He was on my podcast. And I asked him, I said, you've seen everything. You've been through everything. You've experienced everything. what did I go through? And even he didn't really understand. He said it could have been a shifting identity point where in the multiverse you just split and maybe that's what happened. It was unnerving. And I keep thinking, like, my mind now that I'm thinking about it, because I am talking about this more, is it going to happen again? What awaits me? What sort of paranormal encounters await me? It kind of scares me a bit, because just because I've been through a lot of stuff doesn't mean I have all the answers, and doesn't mean I can stop it from happening. It's good and bad that this book, where I sat down and actually wrote all of this out, because I had people tell me for years, oh God, you should write a book, that's so interesting. And I was like, no one cares about this. And then I don't know, something just said you need to write everything down, and I just did it.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to buy your book, The Boogeyman Chronicles, how did they do that?
It's online, just about everywhere. Amazon, it's on Audible. You can get paperback versions, you can get the audiobook version, and various other outlets have it. Just type it in, Boogeyman Chronicles, MG Stevens. Various links should pop up, so you can find it pretty easily.
MG Stevens, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. I wish you success with your book, and that the negative experiences that have long plagued you be replaced with positive, uplifting ones.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. It was an honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. To be sure you don't miss any interviews on my free YouTube channel, all you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.